that one question nobody ever asks. Do you even have a budget for it? And is that budget this year or next year? And it's not wrong if they give you an answer. That's part of discovery. And if it's next year, that's great. You could have the opportunity if you show enough value and fill their pain needs to pull. Or you work with them through that timeline and you continue to build that relationship and do that. So that's aligning realities with doing some of this qualification and going forward. And also that timeline piece of it is a big important piece that a lot of people just seem to miss.
Yeah. And not just do you have budget, but who owns that budget and like who decides that they're going to spend it on here, and what am I competing with for that budget too? Like what are the other things that, you know, are going to be taken up with that budget that I gotta get ahead of in line. And the other thing about those kind of qualification questions I thought too was you learn who's not going to buy a lot quicker too. So you're not spending a lot of time chasing rabbits down holes that are never going to materialize, and you can focus kind of go and spend your energy on the customers that do actually want to buy the solution and have more value there.
Exactly. Yeah. In which case you're doing them a favor and your favor by balancing that and how you're spending their time and appreciating that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that I found that kind of process and some of those qualification and customer discovery pieces to be really helpful for is when after I left the sales role and kind of went into product leadership and P&L ownership was pricing. Because, we'll not reminisce too much on some of those deal reviews that we had to go through and all of the focus on like, well, what is the margin really? And all this analysis and like, oh, we got to get this margin and turn it into a cost plus deal. But actually taking some of that and focus on like, well, what problems are they going to solve with it? If you got to find the value here, how do you price it in a way that they actually can, match that price that they're going to be paying to the value that they're going to be receiving back for it, and getting creative with some of the pricing strategies around it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have margin as a guideline and goal, right? Because margin is going to drive your funding, your budget, your builds and development, so forth from a product. But it could be a double-edged sword. So I think you got to go out there and be able to sell a product and hopefully have value of that product that gets you to a profitable level with that customer and drives that, or incrementally across your customers gets you there. But sometimes just going in with here's my margin without doing the qualification can be dangerous because it could price you out and you don't get the deal. But I'll say flip side, if you do the right valuation and you're just, here's what we're selling because we need this margin, you may cut off a much higher value that you could have there based on your valuation, and you're limiting yourself. So while you can have it for guidance and leadership for guidance, your qualification process brings the value, but don't let that limit also what I'd say against the value of bringing a customer, what you could bring for the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also being able to actually structure the product and the service and decompose it in the ways that once you learn what the customers are valuing, how they're using it, instead of having to sell them this giant monolithic thing that they only need a small part of it, but you got to charge them for the entire package, being able to break that down and kind of find the easier entry points that you can then cross-sell and upsell and, find the right packaging with that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's one area that we actually did well too. I have been with companies where their heads down and this is what the market needs. This is what customers want, or this is something really cool I'm working on. We're going to put it in here without really qualifying as what they need. And you do that when you're disconnected and don't have that connection with customers. I think one thing that our teams did in our geographic regions and even globally was we were very present with customers.
Yeah.
Relationships did matter in selling our industry. They do in enterprise sales. And being there in front of customers and engaging with them and even having them share with you directly couldn't have been replicated if we were just doing emails, Zoom calls, and blanket cold calls. Right. Allowed us to bring a lot of really good ideas back to the company.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the most beneficial meetings were when you bring a product manager, or even if you can bring the engineers themselves along and talk to the customer, like the eyes that got opened in those customer engagements from the engineering team, and like, oh, this is how they're using it. I never thought about this other use case. That's so easy to add on and just restructure this a little bit. And the ideas that came back from that were pretty awesome.